Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Victoria Met's Export Hub's Capability Accelerator program. And today we continue our marketing masterclass with our digital marketing primer. I'm Collins Rex, and I'll be your presenter for today's session. I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we meet. And for me, this is the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And I also extend this respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Straits Islanders people who may be joining us today. As I mentioned, I'm Collins Rex. I'm the lead of the Victoria Met's Export Hub, and I'm delighted to be with you today to address the all-important topic of digital marketing. So when we look at what we're going to be covering off today, a number of different issues that we're going to be looking at, amongst other things, creating a digital marketing strategy, digital marketing tools, and finally, measuring success. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to type those in the Q&A box. I'll keep half an eye on that. I'll take them as we go along, or else we'll take them at the end. So let's get straight into it and start our digital marketing session with digital marketing strategy. Now, of course, in 2022, and of course, this is going to be continuing into the future, any marketing strategy needs to include a digital marketing strategy. A digital marketing strategy can help you connect with the leads wherever they might be and wherever it is that they could be trying to find you. With the right strategy, you can reach unexpected customers looking for all manner of mining equipment technology and services, and indeed any others as well. And when done right, digital marketing does work, and it is more cost effective than those more traditional marketing channels. Now, there are some key steps for you to consider if you are starting your digital marketing campaign from scratch. And these steps are particularly necessary if yours is a Met's business. First of all, you need to define your brand. You need to understand your brand guidelines. That is going to inform how you define your brand. And of course, that needs to come through in your online campaigns. Part of your brand needs to be your unique selling propositions, also your brand voice and your value proposition. And remember, this is not just about you. This is about your customer, and it is about what your customer wants and how you are going to convey the way in which you're going to solve their problems through your brand. It's also very important that you build your buyer personas. Now, understand that your customer isn't one person. So who is it that you're trying to reach with your digital marketing messaging? Are you appealing to engineers? Are you appealing to procurement officers? Or indeed the machine operators who will be using your equipment? What do each of those individuals want and what do they need? And also, very importantly, where are they likely to find their product or services information? You're not going to be advertising a big ticket item like a mining haul truck on Facebook. So do think about that and do understand your messaging for each one of those specific customer types. Then you need to create your SMART goals. Now, in our previous session, we talked in some detail about SMART goals, but essentially these are goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic. And very importantly, also have a time frame included. These need to guide your strategy. So think about your organization's short-term and also your longer-term goals for growth and how your marketing strategy, particularly your digital marketing strategy, needs to play into those. And then appropriately choose your marketing channels. You need to underpin your strategic goals through the channels that you select for your digital marketing campaigns. And that means you need to choose the ones that are most appropriate to your business, your products, your services. Focus on those techniques that offer the most value for your business and also for the industry sector in which you find yourself, and use those rather than the trendy strategies. You also need to set a marketing budget. Research digital marketing pricing and build a realistic budget for your business. In Australia, many businesses spend between $4,000 and $16,000 per month on their online marketing campaigns. Now, if yours is a large business, you're probably going to fall on the larger end of that scale or even way beyond it. But if yours is a really small business, you may not have $4,000 a month to spend on your digital marketing. That means you need to be a lot smarter in your spend, and you need to supplement your paid advertising, for example, the digital campaign that is going to cost you money, with other methods. And we're going to be talking about some of those tools that you can be using that don't necessarily cost money, but certainly cost time. It's also very important that you need to track your results. You need to monitor and you need to measure the performance of your strategies. There's no point in doing something that doesn't actually achieve results. And there are lots of tools you can use. You can use Google Analytics, Google Search Console, Google Ads, and any number of others. And I mention Google a great deal because that is still where most people are using their paid advertising dollars. Of course, there are many others, and you need to be able to track all the ones that you use. Understand what you're spending and understand the return on your investment. And if something isn't giving you the right return, ditch it and move on to something else. Now, moving on to those all-important digital marketing tools. And these are the main ones that you want to consider. Of course, there are any number of others depending on your specific business. Now, the main ones that we're going to look at today is your website. And yes, your website is absolutely a digital marketing tool. It's probably your main one. Search engine optimization, because it doesn't matter how great your website is, if it can't be found, it's not doing its job. We're going to touch on voice SEO. We'll look at pay-per-click advertising, content marketing, which is, of course, where you start getting the traction without necessarily spending the money, remarketing, marketing automation and email marketing, social media marketing, and finally, the importance of video marketing. So in today's world, websites are defined by some key terms, and the words that you really need to be thinking about when you're looking at your website and you're looking at it critically is fast, secure, mobile, easy, optimized, and engaging, but not too busy. So how do you think your prospective customers are going to react when they find your site and what they see there is an outdated website that looks and probably is 10 years old? What are they going to do if the products and the services on your site are actually ones that have been superseded and you don't offer them anymore? Or if the testimonials that you have on your site are from 5 years ago? And how do you think they're going to respond if they can't find anything on your site because your search functionality just isn't up to standard? So how do you fix your website? How do you make sure that it is a site that appropriately functions and does everything you want it to? Bearing in mind that your website is your shop front. Your website is the thing that speaks on your behalf when you cannot. So let's look at some of those all-important web design trends for 2022 and beyond. Today's sites need to have a strong sense of place. And for you as an Australian Mets business, that's really good news because the Australian Mets industry has a fabulous reputation internationally. So use it. Make sure that people who stumble upon your website understand that yours is an Australian business with all the chops that that brings. You also need to engage in frictionless UX. The user experience is all important when it comes to websites, and essentially you need to make your website as easy as possible to use. And that means you also need to understand your user, and you need to understand how they are going to be interacting with your website. And that comes back to knowing your customer. So how do you avoid friction? In other words, how do you avoid people not being able to smoothly navigate through your website and find the information that they really need? Well, first of all, trim all the fat. Get rid of everything that is not absolutely necessary on your website. Also, prioritize your content. Make the really important stuff stand out right up front. Don't make people look for it. Any forms that you have, so if you want people to download, for example, a white paper and they need to complete a form to do that, make those forms simple and make them easy to understand. If people have to complete 15 line items, trust me, they're not going to do it, and you're not going to capture them. Also, don't make the users of your website guess as to where they're going to find things, how to navigate, where the navigation buttons sit, etc. The site has to be quick, and that means every single page that any user is going to access needs to load really fast. And of course, be there to provide help when it's needed. If a potential customer, or indeed an existing customer who goes to your site to find information, needs to speak to somebody in customer service, somebody needs to be there, and that means 24/7. And of course, you cannot be there all the time, but you can use a chatbot, for example. And chatbots today are really bright and really smart. They learn all the time thanks to artificial intelligence, and they can answer many of the simple questions that a human being isn't available to answer. I cannot stress enough how important it is that your site needs to be quick. So you need to prioritize page speed. This has become very much a hot button for all web developers and for all people who have websites. And this is particularly important when you start thinking of SEO as well, because Google's 2021 algorithm update has made speed more important than ever when it comes to search engine optimization. Of course, people have very high expectations as well of website performances. Nobody has time to wait for seconds, not even to mention minutes, for a page to load. The stats tell us that 53% of users will abandon a page that takes more than 3 seconds to load. So think about that when you have pages, particularly ones that are rich in imagery. If your images haven't been optimized and they haven't been sized appropriately, that page is going to take too long to load. And the chances are the user is going to move right along from that page and from your website to one that loads faster. If you're not sure of how well your site performs when it comes to speed, Google Page Speed Insights is a really great site that will check it for you, and Lighthouse is another tool that can be used to assess your page speed optimization. Your site has to be interoperable across all devices. So whether somebody is accessing your site on a desktop or a tablet or indeed a smartphone, it needs to function as well. And if you look at the illustration that you see on your screen, understand that the format of the different devices is different. You've got portrait formats and you've got landscape formats. Make sure that your site works equally well in all of those and that your navigation works. So if your nav is all across the top, when you move to a mobile format, it needs to move to the side. And that's just one of the many things you need to discuss with your web developers to make sure that your site works as well when it comes to mobile as it does to the desktop. Any potential user on your site is going to come there looking for information, and that means they're going to want to search for something specific. So can they find what they're looking for on your site? Your search function needs to work and it needs to be comprehensive. So make sure that people can search sometimes quite obscure keywords, because what the customer looks for is not necessarily what you anticipate, particularly when it comes to the language they might be using. So ensure that your user interface is seamless and, very importantly, that it's intuitive. So if you use your own website, can you find anything on it? And of course, you know what's supposed to be there. So let other people not related to your business or indeed to your industry sector, see if it's still intuitive for them. And something that you also might want to consider now is that your customers might want to search using voice. We've all become very used to using Siri or Alexa, and we ask for things rather than type them. So if you really want to be effective from a search perspective, your users need to be able to do the same thing. And we're going to look at video in a little bit more detail in a moment, but it is important that you think about using video on your website, because next to Google, YouTube is the second largest search engine, and videos definitely do allow you to drive your branding and to build trust. And of course, they can also be invaluable resources when it comes to providing instruction and information to your customers. Your website needs to be integrated with any other social media channels you use. So make sure you've got social share plugins on your product pages, embed social media widgets where it's relevant, display social media videos. Say, for example, you've had instructional videos on YouTube, make sure that there are links to those on your website. If you've had a conference, for example, at which you've spoken and it went really well and somebody recorded a snippet of that and you've uploaded it to Instagram, have that link as well on your website. Also integrate your social media commenting systems. So if you do collect customer feedback through your social media channels, make sure that those are integrated with your website. And that also means that you need to showcase those really great reviews that you got. So if you posted something on LinkedIn and there was a really positive comment from somebody about the post or about a product that you might have highlighted, make sure that you include those reviews on your website. And of course, also use LinkedIn actively for your executive or your team profiles. So if you have a profile of your team, and many companies do, don't just have a bio, don't just have a picture, also have a link to the LinkedIn profile of those people. It will assist you in proving capability. Your site really does need to be accessible. So it's not just what you say, it's how and where you say it. If you're not sure if your site is accessible to people of all abilities, so it's accessible to people that might have issues with sight, people that might have issues with hearing, if you are using videos, for example, with sound, if you have an issue with your site maybe being quite difficult to read because of the color contrast you use, etc., check how accessible your site is. And there's a really good link that you can see on the screen there to where you can check the accessibility of your site and then also download some tools that will help your site to be more accessible. Also consider a gender-neutral design for your website. Do not assume that your customer is male or indeed that your customer is female. Make sure that you are using gender-neutral terms wherever possible. Really, you want to make sure that you are accessible to every single potential customer, whoever or wherever they might be. And that also means that your site needs to be localized. So much as you're going to emphasize the fact that yours is an Australian business that grew up from the Australian soil and has a great reputation in Australia, you are also going to need to localize your website for international audiences. At the very least, have common language support. So have a button where people can automatically translate your website into another language. And that is something that you then do not have to translate your site and have several versions of it. Potential customer lands on the site from Chile, for example, and they can choose to have the site translated into Spanish for them. Now, that's not going to be perfect. It's very much like Google Translate, but it will give them a really good sense of what is in that site. If you are going to be concentrating on any particular market, like South America, for example, you might want to consider having a whole other site that is geolocated in that area, and that is then entirely in Spanish. Similarly, you might have an Arabic site if you are doing a lot of work in the Middle East. So think about those nuances when it comes to localizing, and again, ensuring that you capture as many users as positively as possible. So let's now look at search engine optimization. And these are some of those all-important aspects of your website that you really do need to be considering and having working properly. SEO is the process of tweaking and updating your website code and your content so that your pages rank higher than the competition. It's really as simple as that. But of course, nothing is ever that simple when we come to the digital realm. Search engines, and here we're talking engines like Google or Bing or any number of others, including YouTube, for example, use search crawlers to scan web pages and decipher what they're about. These crawlers don't speak English or Spanish or Portuguese. They speak HTML, and that means they don't read the words on a page and they don't see images the way we see them. They search for languages or words in languages that they understand, which is that it's HTML. So it's a little bit like subtitles. Your website on the surface is one thing, but the crawlers look behind that for the subtitles so that they can make sense of it. And crawlers use artificial intelligence and machine learning to decipher around 200 clues to understand what a page is about. And some of the things they look at is, of course, the web page content, but also the loading speed, any backlinks, optimized images, domain age. The younger your website is, the more likely the crawlers are to find it, and the user experience, and countless others. So make sure that your pages, every single one of the pages on your website, that all of those pages are optimized for search engines. It's not enough to just have your homepage SEO friendly. Every single page, including and probably particularly your product pages, need to be as well. Now, leading on from SEO is VSO. It's one of the newest digital marketing strategies, and this is voice search optimization. So with VSO, you optimize existing and new website content for voice search. So the intention is that you earn your website the featured snippet or position 0 spot on Google. So why do you want to do this? Well, voice assistants, whether it be Siri or Alexa or any of the others, use that featured snippet to respond to voice searches. So if a user asks, how do I automate my haul truck fleet? Siri is going to reply with the featured snippet that she has found on Google search. So VSO is becoming increasingly important as more and more people are using that voice search functionality on their phones. The next tool is pay-per-click advertising. So PPC is a form of online advertising where you pay only when somebody clicks through to your website from an online ad. So literally pay-per-click. Now, we're all familiar with the paid search ads that show up at the head of a list of search results. And of course, the results can number in the millions, and the ads are the ones that we see first. But there are lots of others, including social media campaigns, Google local services ads, display ads, immersive ads that can include virtual reality and augmented reality. And then there are also those shopping ads that drive e-commerce that we see all the time and that probably drive us all around the twist. And this is what it looks like. This is literally an ad that has been lifted from the web. And if you advertise through pay-per-click, you will see a similar sort of listing for your own business. Now, pay-per-click is actually quite a complicated thing because it's not as simple as you pay some money and every time people click, they go through to your website. In fact, you don't even know how the pay-per-click advertising rate works because there's a formula that's applied to that. So essentially, as an advertiser, you're going to bid on a keyword. Google chooses several ads through an automated auction process. And of course, this all happens in pretty much real time. The system multiplies each advertiser's maximum bid by their quality score, and that gives them an ad rank. And then Google displays the ads according to the highest rank. And you can see the formula there. It's bid multiplied by quality score, which gives you the ad rank. And Google looks at a whole raft of different things to determine that rank, including the click-through rate. So the more people actually do click on your ads, the better your ranking becomes over time. Also, how relevant your ad is to the user's query, the quality of the ad's landing page. So if you are directing people to a product page, for example, that product page needs to be pretty schmick for your ranking to increase. Google only uses the ads that are really useful to users right up front because, of course, it affects them too. And then there's a whole other formula that's applied to how you pay for a click. The higher your score is, the less you pay. So the better your score, the better it's going to be for you economically, and the higher your return on investment is going to be. Happy to take questions offline if you have more questions about pay-per-click, because you can find a lot of information that can help you fine-tune what you do there. Of course, pay-per-click costs. Content marketing generally doesn't, but it does take time and it takes energy. So in content marketing, you focus on reaching, engaging, and connecting with your customers via content. Content can be videos, blog posts, infographics. In fact, the more different sources of content you have, the better it is. The important thing to note, though, that content shouldn't be sales-oriented. It's informational. So content is not saying, this is what we sell, this is how it's fabulous, come and buy it from us. Your content is more informational, softer, more thought leadership oriented. No matter what format you choose to use, you have to make sure that it's useful to your audience. And again, that goes back to knowing your customer. You want to be creating original and high quality content that your users want to share, not just with their colleagues, but with people outside of your networks and in theirs. So think about things like use cases, for example, to explain what you do rather than telling people why it's so great. Now, if you're going to use content marketing effectively in the Met sector, you need to do a few things, and that includes posting content frequently. You can't just have the occasional posting. You have to have posting all the time because it keeps your website fresh, it keeps your brand top of mind, and it keeps you being considered as a leader in your area. Use a content calendar. Make sure that you understand what you're posting when, and keep it up to date. And you might need to have somebody on your staff who is responsible for this rather than kind of leaving it open for everybody to do their own bit. Identify any gaps that you might have if you've put that calendar together, and then figure out how you're going to plug those gaps. And then use a variety of content formats. Blogs, of course, are the thing that we know most commonly, whether it's blogging or vlogging. But there are lots of other things that you can consider, including videos, ebooks that you might publish. And these don't need to be tomes. They can be short, sharp, just a few pages, but they do give you the ability to delve deeper into certain concepts and issues. And of course, they give you a means of capturing data from your customers as well if they want to download anything. This will keep your strategy fresh and it will help you to reach those different customer types in different ways. So if you're reaching out to those engineering customers, you're obviously going to focus on very technical thought leadership pieces, for example, writing about technical things. If you're aiming at somebody in the marketing world, you're going to have more of a marketing spin on the sort of content that you're going to use. Similarly, if you're looking at accounting customers, all those procurement customers, etc. It's also very important that you write for people and not for search engines. Very often people write content aiming at the search engines, and human beings don't relate to that content at all. So don't make it just for the search engine. The search engine is going to find it in their method anyway. Make sure that you've got content that appeals to your audience. Write for humans, make sure the information makes sense for your audience. You want them to come back time and time again and to keep reading. You also want them to stay on your website for as long as possible. And also use high quality visuals. So don't just have pages and pages of text in your blog. Have images as well that people can relate to, and make sure that those images are really good quality. There's nothing as annoying as thinking an image hasn't loaded properly when actually it's really just a rubbish image. So make sure that you make them good images. And that brings us to images of the moving kind. Video marketing is incredibly effective when it comes to engaging people on your website, to engaging them with your brand, to giving them a really good sense of who you are, what you're all about, and what your products and your services are all about. It will help you to increase your reach. It will help you to grow your revenue and to expand your operations. And here again, video is looking more at the informational stuff rather than the sales pitches. So it could be instructional. It could literally be, this is how you use a particular product. It could also be not just this is the product and this is how you use it, but this is how you apply our product to do something else. It could be an announcement. So if you are announcing a new product range, for example, or you're announcing a different engine type for a piece of machinery, by all means, have an announcement, but make sure that it's relevant to your audience. And those behind the scenes videos are always very effective as well. So here's my team. This is our factory floor. This is us assembling things, etc. Also use video of things that show you as being an expert in your field. So you addressing a conference, for example, you having a stand at a trade show. So if you're going to be at IMARC in November, you probably want to capture some footage there and use it on your website. Doesn't matter what kind of video you're creating, it's all about giving your audience a deeper understanding of your business and your products, and also building that all-important brand awareness. And the more technical your product or your service, the more useful video can be. Video, of course, is a very good mechanism for social media marketing, but it's also important to understand that not all social media channels are the same. You need to select the one that is most appropriate for your business and the ones that are in use in your target market. There's no point in you using a channel that is not available in your target market. So if, for example, and I've mentioned that Facebook is probably really bad for you in the Met sector, but if you were on Facebook, it's going to mean nothing to you in China because Facebook pretty much isn't used there. So do understand your market, understand the social media channels that are being used, and understand where your customers are engaging with social media. And also understand that organic reach on social media is pretty rotten at the moment. So you probably will have to supplement your social media marketing campaigns with paid ads for them to be really effective. Focus on the professional social channels like LinkedIn. Also make sure that you are actively engaged with professional and technical groups. It's not enough to just have a company page on LinkedIn, for example. You also need to be engaged in the groups, on other pages, in those discussion forums, etc. And not just on LinkedIn, but in other social media channels. And also, very importantly, what you want to do with your social media is show yourself to be a thought leader and a leader in your field. I'd like to focus now on remarketing. Remarketing is an interesting concept. It's a concept that can be very annoying, but it's a concept that is also very effective. So essentially, when someone visits your website from any device, a few lines of code from your retargeting partner, that can be Google AdWords, drops an anonymous digital cookie in the user's digital pocket, which is their browser. The cookie is a small file that contains bits of information, and it tracks site visits, but it doesn't store any personal information, and that is also important to note. When the user leaves your website, the cookie is sitting in their digital pocket. The cookie then tells your ad platform when they land on another site, and there, like magic, your ad appears. They can go to any unrelated site. It doesn't have to be a competitor site or indeed a site that is in the same industry sector as yours. But when they land on another site, up pops your ad, which reminds them that they saw something on your site that was useful to them, could be useful to them, and it prompts them to go back. And it really does work, because people that have been targeted through retargeted ads are 70% more likely to convert with you by re-engaging with your website. And then there's marketing automation. Now, we all get newsletters, we all get emails from our customers, and we all send them. You shouldn't be doing this stuff manually. And if you are, you really do need to be looking at an automation program. So marketing automation is a catch-all for any form of messaging that is triggered automatically. And this includes everything from email marketing to automated texts to in-mail marketing, for example, on LinkedIn. So it works like this. Someone comes to your website, they enter the email address or phone number to download something like a white paper that could be highly regarded in the sector. That email address or phone number then goes into an automated system that automatically sends predetermined emails and messages according to a schedule that you have put together. If you are using marketing automation, make sure that you're not bombarding people with too much information. If you are sending too much, people are going to unsubscribe and you will have lost them forever. So make sure that you only send relevant stuff. Make sure that it's personalized and relevant to the customer. And again, I keep harping on this, but you have to know who your customer is, what they want, where they want it, and the sort of information that is relevant to them. And there are lots of automating tools. You probably know Active Campaign. There's also Sharp, Spring, Keep, Clever Tap, and any number of others. And of course, none of this is worth anything if you are not measuring success. In order to know the success of any campaign, you need to be able to measure the outcome. Understand the difference between a metric and a KPI. So metric is a number. It's a bounce rate from your website, it's page views, it's time spent on a page, etc. Whereas a KPI, a key performance indicator, is a digital metric that is most closely tied to your overall business success. So much as a metric like bounce rate is important to know whether people are landing on your site and leaving immediately, you need to understand why that is important to you, and you need to determine that you want to retain 80% of all visitors for a certain length of time. That is the KPI. So some of the KPIs that really count include things like total sales, leads, revenue, return on marketing investment, lead to sale conversion rate, cost per lead, etc. So it's not important enough to just have the numbers. You need to understand how those numbers relate to your business goals. And that is particularly important with digital marketing because it's the way you track whether your digital marketing has been effective and whether you're getting a proper return on your investment. And return on investment is key. Now, in our previous session, we went through this in detail, so we don't need to go through it in detail again, but it is important to understand the key concepts. So return on investment measures the sales revenue that a campaign brings on every single dollar spent. And these slides will be made available to you after the fact, so you'll be able to track all of this stuff again. Cost per win, which is literally the sale, measures the expense of each sale. So you spend X amount, how many sales did you get? And therefore, how much did one sale cost you? Now, of course, you're not going to start with sales. You'll be starting with leads, and then you'll be converting those leads into sales. So cost per lead measures the cost effectiveness of marketing campaigns, and it tells you what you have paid for every lead that was generated by the campaign. Conversion rate or goal completion rate, just as you measure your website's conversion rate, you need to measure the campaign conversion rate. So how many visitors came in as a result of this campaign? That will give you your conversion rate, and you'll also be able to determine how much that cost. Incremental sales measures the contribution of marketing efforts towards sales numbers. So again, this measures effectiveness in generating sales, but it's a really good way of comparing one campaign to another. The purchase funnel, again, not everybody that lands on your site or interacts with your content marketing, etc., is going to buy something from you, but they will be leads. And the purchase funnel then tracks how many of those leads eventually move through the marketing funnel and eventually become customers. It's really important that you don't have one-off customers, that your customers stick around and become lifetime customers. So customer lifetime value measures the lifetime value of your customers, and it has a formula that it applies to see how likely customers are to become repeat customers. The best customers are the ones that are with you for the long haul. And then finally, there's multi-channel funnels and attribution. So you want to measure each one of your campaigns and each one of your channels separately, but they are going to be overlaps. And this is going to allow you to see where the overlap occurs and where you are funneling people to and from. So if somebody has come to you through content marketing, have they gone to your website, or have they gone to a blog page, for example, from one content to another? Have they gone from your website to your product pages, or have they gone from a product page to a content marketing piece, for example? Have they landed on your LinkedIn profile and then ended up with your business page and then gone to your website, for example? And that brings us to the end of today's session. I know we've covered a lot of ground in today's session, but I'm more than happy to take any questions if you have them, and you can just type them in the Q&A box and I'll take them right now. Or if you think of them after today, you're more than welcome to send them to me offline. And while you're thinking of any questions that you might have, just bringing you up to speed as to what we've got coming up next. So today was the second in our Marketing Masterclass webinars. And next week, we're going to, or not next week, but the week after next, the next session, which is webinar 3 on the 7th of September, establishing a METS brand in a new market. So how do you break into a new market? How do you establish your brand so that you can then start gaining traction in that market? And you can see the address to register. If you have any questions about establishing a brand, or questions about today's session, or indeed the first session, feel free to email me at collins.rex@austmine.com.au. If you are a Victoria METS Export Hub member, remember you also get access to one-on-one mentoring with our experts, and you can email me to get access. And if you're not a hub member, but you are a Victorian company, then please become a hub member. Send me an email and I'll give you all the details. It's really simple. There's no cost at all to join the hub. You just have to be a business engaged in the sector or wanting to engage in the MET sector. And of course, you need to be interested in exporting your products or your services. Simple form to complete, and you'll be a member. Got a whole raft of things still to come in the Capability Accelerator program. The Market Selection Series is about 3/4 of the way through now. The Marketing Masterclass has a couple of sessions still to come. And very importantly, if your business is in any shape, size or form engaged in a global supply chain, you need to make sure that your cybersecurity is up to scratch, and you can join us for a face-to-face session starting from the 6th of September and running all the way through to the end of September for our regional cyber roadshow. And you can register for all events by going to the Austmine website and following the link to events. And just remember that you have to register separately for each event. So just because you've attended today doesn't mean you'll automatically be registered for the next Marketing Masterclass webinar, for example. Austmine also has some great events, and the 31st of August, there's a face-to-face smart mining networking event in Melbourne. And this one is really great for you, not just to get yourself around some technical topics and great speakers, but also to network with your peers. And on the 12th of October, we have our CEO luncheon, at which we're going to look back on the Beaconsfield mine and everything that occurred there. So make sure you register for those. And of course, if you are wanting to reach international customers, you need to be at IMARC. IMARC from the 2nd to the 4th of November in Sydney at the ICC, and you can see the address on your screen where you go to register, not just as a visitor, but also as a stall holder. Now, there aren't very many expo booths available, but there may still be one or two if you haven't yet booked your space. If you are going to IMARC and you are a hub member, please let me know, because we've got a number of hub activities and we have a hub stand at which you can also be engaged. So make sure we know that you're going to be there if you're not exhibiting, or if you're exhibiting for that matter, but certainly if you're a visitor. And then putting on our forward-gazing view to next year in May, Austmine 23, which is our conference, and there's always some really great stuff there. So go to the website, have a look at it, and register your interest to be involved, because the more the merrier. And if you've missed anything from today's session, if you want to know more about the hub or any of the events coming up, etc., your easiest port of call is the Austmine website, so austmine.com.au. Now, it doesn't look as if we've had any questions, so clearly you've got all the information you want, or you just haven't been able to think of any questions. So all that remains is for me to say thank you very much for being with us today, and I look forward to the pleasure of your company at the next session. So next week, of course, is the next market selection section, and we've also got our pitching session was this week. There's a presentation session next week, so make sure you keep an eye on social media channels and book for all of those sessions, or go to the Austmine website to do so. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and I look forward to the pleasure of your company next time. So until then, goodbye.